Welcome to Duncan's Content Check number 2. We're doing Unit 4, Absolutism. Today's content is going to cover something called the Peace of Utrecht, not to be confused with the Union of Utrecht, its significance, and the Spanish War of Succession. We are also going to take a look at Spanish leadership. At the very end, I'm going to do a little bit on Italy. I'm basically just going to let you fill in your blanks. I've hardly ever had anything on Italy in that section on any of the tests, but I don't want you to have a blank that you haven't filled in. So here we go. This section is going to concentrate on Spain. Just to kind of review, understand that they'd had a failing economy because of the price revolution. They basically dumped a whole bunch of the gold and the silver that they had taken from the New World into their economy, and it's going to lead to massive inflation, and it's going to wreck their economy. So just kind of take a look at this and do a little bit of a review. Understand that they're also going to lose Portugal during this time period. Trade's going to drop off by 1650, so Spain's really kind of hurting. And we're going to get into some kings now that go past our family tree that we had done in class, past Philip II, who was married to Mary Tudor, and really kind of moving on down and down the line further. And as you can see on the screen, Charles II is mentally ill. He's going to die, and at that point, Louis XIV of France is going to get into a little bit of a disagreement over who should be the next king of Spain and what's going on there. Taking a look at just kind of what's going on, filling in these blanks. Make sure you kind of read through this. Understand kind of why, what's going on, the setup here. The Dutch and the English are going to have a say in what's going on. This slide is actually kind of skipping ahead a little bit, so let's go down here to the map of the War of Spanish Succession. And of course, we start up here with Henry IV. That's our Paris is worth a mass guy. And he gets married, and notice he's got a lot of mixing with Spain up here, which is going to lead to the whole family line. You've got Anne of Austria, who's the sister, or who's married to Louis the 13th. She's got sisters that are, on this Spanish line here. If you go a little bit further down, you got Louis the 14th, married to Maria Theresa of Spain. So a lot of mixing between Spain and France. And the note says that the names in bold are people who claim they should be on the Spanish throne during this War of Spanish Succession. And to make a really long story short, because it really doesn't matter too terribly much, if you want to go into all this, then hey, knock yourself out. Philip, the Duke of Anjou, he's going to kind of be one of the claimants, but Spain is a little weary of this. So are other countries around Europe, because he's a direct descendant of Louis XIV. He essentially doesn't want Louis XIV to basically tell this kid what to do. And we saw on the previous slide up here that Louis XIV is Philip of Anjou is Louis XIV's grandson. Okay, so they don't want him to become a puppet of the French throne and basically do anything that Grandpa tells him to do. And so they're going to fight all of this out. Over here is Charles II of Spain. He's going to die. Who's really going to take over? Not entirely sure, because, you've got this branch over here that says, hey, it should be these guys. But people were generally okay with Philip taking over, and he is going to become Philip V of Spain. But what's going to really happen here is that he's going to become the King of Spain, Philip V, the fifth guy to be named Philip, who happens to be King of Spain. And they're going to come to an understanding that France and Spain are not going to be united over this. It's not like they're going to become one massive conglomerate country. Um, France is going to surrender a lot of its colonies and to the Strait of Gibraltar, African slave trade to England, and Austria is going to be given the Spanish Netherlands, the Italian states, Prussia, and the United Netherlands are going to get very little. So you've got a lot of country trading here. And a lot of countries that we think of as big, huge countries today are basically going to be traded around like pawns in a big old game of land chess. So the bottom line here is that whenever they signed the Peace of Utrecht in 1713, it's going to flat out say Spain is not going to unite. Philip is going to be a king in his own right. So, hey, Granddad, stay out of his business. And the slave trade is gonna rotate around a little bit, and control of a lot of these territories is gonna roll around. So this comes from the crash course. There are major international consequences here, and that is the balance of power. It is a vocabulary term, balance of power, a vocabulary phrase, um, and and that should be setting limits, not letting limits, but setting limits on how far any one country can extend its power. And this is going to be focused on France. There's going to be a lot of focus on France over the next 100 years and trying to balance their power. And that's going to be a common phrase that we're going to use for the next few months. The balance of power in Europe. They don't want one country to get too crazy out of control big. Because remember, back when the Holy Roman Empire ruled all that territory, they were pretty much in power, and then they had to fight all these wars of religion over it. So they don't want that situation to happen again. And this is also going to mark the end of Louis XIV's expansionist policies. Remember, he was constantly going to war to gain more territory. That was in his foreign policy stuff you were supposed to check out, or are supposed to check out for the study guide, wherever you're at in the process there. It vastly expands Great Britain. Remember, they got all that territory, the slave trade, Strait of Gibraltar control. That's that itty bitty, teeny tiny, little itty bitty strait in between Spain and Morocco, so that you can get into the Mediterranean Sea. So a huge control of that is a pretty big, a pretty powerful thing. And one of the other big things that we're going to again see a lot of for the rest of the year is European powers now get experience in international cooperation. So these countries are going to have to work with other countries, and that's going to be a very common theme, pretty much even through today and for the rest of our course. Where they had been operating autonomously, or just it was Spain and France and England fighting again. Now you've got multiple countries in Europe, international cooperation. This is also going to note a lack of leadership from Spain, and kind of capstone some problems with Spain. Philip III, Philip IV, these are all, of course, after Philip II. Then Charles II, they don't do much to solve the problems of Spain. They have lots of those wars, if you'll take a look at the ones that are up there. And Spain is slowly but surely going to lose lots of amounts of territory, or cede lots of amounts of territory to France. So Spain, again, on the decline. It's going to mark the end of the golden age of Spain, where the Habsburgs and the New World, the old imperialism is what they call the going over and taking over the New World. That was a golden age for them. They're very artsy, high in trade, exploration, new technologies for the time, and they're really going to mark the decline with the Philips and Charles. Here is a picture of the change over time between Philip IV and Philip the Second in the eyes of artists. One guy looks very stately, kingly. The other guy, you can hardly even tell he's royal. He looks like a schlub. It really kind of looks like he needs a haircut too. He's emulating the Elvis. But again, that statesman-like, Christian, regal, kingly-like pose. If you'll notice the rosary in his hand. And then the other guy almost looks like just a common dude you'd be taking a picture of. So Spain is starting to lose that regal air, if you will. We get back into Miguel Cervantes, so just go ahead and press pause. Little recap of Don Quixote. Press pause so you can get your fill in the blanks. More Don Quixote. Make sure you can fill in your blanks. Really making fun of this time period. And there's a word, it's a great word, that I always like to talk about, especially with the Don Quixote stuff, and that is the very last bullet point down there, to be quixotic. Quixotic. Is it means to be idealistic but impractical. Because remember, it's like Don Quixote there, and his I'm going to go out and conquer the world kind of attitude that was just impractical for the time. So if somebody's calling you quixotic, then they might be alluding to the fact that you've always got your head in the clouds, but no basis in reality. And maybe you dream big, but nothing you say you're going to do ever gets done. So quixotic, it's a fun little SAT college word, one that's going to make you sound really important if you're talking or saying it and using it. Tales of the Fragmented. This is again that Italy. And that's a lot of stuff on a page, so let's just flip back up for a second here. Italy is going to be used as a pawn. It is still not Italy. It is still those papal states. It's still broken up, and of course with the decline of Catholicism and the Pope, then now it's really starting to get into turmoil, and other people are really running Italy down there. So stop, get your stuff that you need to get for your fill in the blanks. Before you do press pause, though, the Treaty of Lodi gets a lot of attention. That's usually where we start to see. That's where we start to see some of the stuff from Italy. Notice we're going back a little bit to talking about the rule of Savonarola here, right in here. It's also talking about the prince. Throughout the 16th century, that's the 1500s, again, Italy is fragmented. It says and they're used like pawns for stronger centralized states, like France and Spain, like we were talking about on the previous slides. So here's your content check number 2. Please make sure that you got all your answers before moving on. You may also want to go outside of these notes for Spanish leadership, and how leadership really determines the fate of a country. I'm just flat out going to tell you right now, if you go to past FRQs or you Google this on the internet, it's going to have some answers for you on this one, because it was a past FRQ question, but it was like from the 90s. So it isn't in the format that we would see today. You're not going to see this question word for word. However, if they do ask you to analyze the decline or the rise and fall of Spain, then this essay or this answer, the ones that you would read online, are going to give you some great little tidbits to throw into an essay to sound super duper smart when the readers are reading your stuff this summer.